review worksheet, see how you guys did. This worksheet, or the handwritten worksheet, is really similar to your quiz. So if you did okay on this, you should do fine on your first quiz for the fourth quarter. So we have e to the 2x minus 3e to the x plus 2 equals 0. This is what we consider a quadratic in disguise, because I can rewrite this as, and typically, I know I mentioned this in previous videos, this is your key right there. So I can rewrite this first piece here as e to the x squared minus 3 times e to the x plus 2 equals 0. So this usually is what you want this to look like. And the reason why we want to do that now is I do a let statement, let y equals e to the x, and I rewrite this using y. This becomes y squared minus 3y plus 2 equals 0. Then I'm going to factor it. Y minus 2, y minus 1 equals 0. So I end up with y equals 2 and y equals 1. Now, some of you have the bad habit of leaving those as the answers. Those are not the answers. Look at the original question. Didn't have y's in it. So this is where you bring this back in. So right here, y gets replaced with e to the x equals 2, e to the x equals 1. And then we're going to use logs to solve it. Anytime there's an x in the exponent, we use logs to solve. And because it's e, we're going to use the natural log. So it becomes the natural log of 2 equals x. So that's one of the answers. And this one, what exponent makes anything turn out to be 1? 0. So those are the two answers for number 1. 1a. All right. Now let's do 1b. 1b is 16 to the x minus 7 times 4 to the x plus 12 equals 0. Now, similar to the last question, 4 to the x, that's what's controlling the question. That's what I want him to look like. And I can change 16, right, into 4 squared to the x. So what I did was I changed 16 into 4 squared to the x minus 7 times 4 to the x plus 12 equals 0. Now, what do you do when you raise a power to a power? You multiply, and since multiplication is commutative, we could flip-flop these. So this becomes a 4 to the x squared minus 7 times 4 to the x plus 12 equals 0. And now is where I bring in my let statement. Right here, 4 to the x, that's where I'm going to let y equal 4 to the x. So I have y squared minus 7y plus 12 equals 0. That factors into y minus 4, y minus 3 equals 0. So I get y equals 4 and y equals 3. Now again, these are not the answers. We're almost done. We got to bring back in our let statement. So I get 4 to the x equals 4, 4 to the x equals 3. Right? And what exponent would make this a 4? Well, that would be 1. So we actually have a nice pretty answer there. And right here, right, we're going to write this as a log. Log base 4, 3 equals x. That's an acceptable answer. Or if I log both sides, log 4 to the x equals log 3. Right? The x falls down in front. So x equals log 3 over log 4. So 1 is an answer or either one of these. Okay. Those were the first two. Now let's move on to 1c. Where's the top of my page? Here we go. 1c was the natural log of 2 plus x equals 1. Now, when I look at this, I see a singleton log, and I need to solve it. And that means we're going to use Ben. What's my base? E. What's my exponent? 1 equals 2 plus x. Subtract the 2 over, and this question is done. Sometimes they're just that easy. X equals e minus 2. Now, a lot of questions you do want to check if you plug this in right here, right? So here, I'm going to check in red, just to show you what I'm talking about. If I do the natural log of 2 plus e minus 2, right? These 2's would cancel. And you end up with the natural log of e equals 1, which is true, but you can never have a 0 or negative in this location, which is why this answer is okay. All right, 1D. So we have log x plus log x minus 1 equals log 4x. All right, first things first, you have to handle any adding or subtracting between logs. So in the land of the logs, adding is the same thing as multiplication. So this becomes log x times x minus 1 equals log 4x. Now, unlike the last question, and the last question only had one log. This one, I have log base 10 on each side of the equal sign, right? So what that means is since these are the same, that means these would have to be the same. So we only need to work with the x's. So this becomes x squared minus x equals 4x. Subtract over the 4x. I get two different answers, x and x minus 5 equals 0. Well, that means x equals 0 and x equals 5. Now, just like I did a check here, I have to do a check here. If I plug 0 in right there, or right there, we get both zeros and negatives, which we cannot have, so we have to reject that answer. 5s, though, work. So there's only one answer to this question, and it's 5. So make sure you check. And finally, the last one for number 1, 1e. I have the natural log of x plus 1 minus the natural log of x minus 1 equals 2. All right, subtraction. Got to handle that first. That means division. So that becomes the natural log of x plus 1 divided by x minus 1 equals 2. Now, just like 1c, there's only one log, so this I have to bend. E squared is x plus 1 over x minus 1. This is a fraction, so I'm going to make this look like a fraction. I'm going to cross multiply. E squared x minus e squared is equal to x plus 1. Now we're trying to solve for x, so everything with x has to get over here, everything without x moves over. So I'm going to subtract this x over and add over e squared. Right? The reason why we want to do that is so I can factor out an x here. Okay. And then divide both sides by e squared minus 1. So we have 1 plus e squared all over e squared minus 1. Now, something I want to point out. You really need to check these two. I have not been pushing it in the last couple of homeworks. In fact, in the last couple of homeworks, these answers needed to get rejected because it would have made a 0 or a negative here. But because you're not using calculators, I didn't really push it. But let's talk about it. E is approximately 3, right? So 3 squared would be 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. So that would be a 10 on top. 3 squared minus 1, right? This would be about 8, so 10 over 8. And that would check here. So that's something I do want you to start to keep track of now, since we've been doing a lot of graphs with the e's and coming up with approximations. You should be checking these just like I checked this one. Again, the last couple homeworks, technically these should have been rejected because they gave you negatives here. Some people noticed that, and I was really proud of you for picking that up. I was just really happy you guys got the procedures correctly in the past, but now that's something I want you guys to be aware of. All right, so that was it for number 1, all the solving. Now we go to the graph questions. And the first one I asked you guys to graph, so 2a, was f of x equals 3e parenthesis 1/2 x plus 1 plus 2. All right, now the first thing I'm going to do is notice in here is no good. We have to factor out the 1/2 in front of the x. So I'm going to rewrite f of x as 3e to the 1/2 x plus 2 plus 2. And again, you can check yourself that you factored right by distributing it. You should get that again. All right, so that's step one. Now what I'm going to do is get the parent function. And the parent function of this is plain old y equals e to the x. And I'm going to make my xy chart of the parent function. Right? E, I'm going to pay attention what's in the exponent, x's. So I'm going to put my values down the x column. So that's 1 over e, 1, and e, right? And the basic asymptote for all exponentials is y equals 0. All right, so now I'm going to make my xy chart for f of x. All right, start at the beginning, work like you're reading a book, left to right, or reading a sentence actually. So start with 3. 3 out in front means I'm multiplying everything down the y column with 3. So that's 3 over e, 3, 3e. Okay, next, see a half in front of this guy? That means I'm going to multiply my x's by 2. So it's negative 2, 0, 2. Then x plus 2 comes along. Now from these, I'm going to subtract 2. So this would become negative 4, this would become negative 2, and this would become 0. So I'm shifting it 2 to the left. So everything's moving back 2. And then I'm going to add 2 onto each of these. All right, so what I'm going to do now is make approximate points. This is approximately negative 4. Now, E is approximately 2.7, or almost 3. So if you want to think about it, it's 3 over 3 plus 2. So this is approximately 3, a little less than that. All right, this guy is the point negative 2.5. And this point would be 0 and approximately what? 3 times 3 is 9. Right, a little less than 9, plus 2 is 11, so a little less than 11. So it's a little less than 3, a little less than 11. So now let's graph this. So I need to go up to 11. This, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. And I also now over here want to get the new asymptote. So I have y equals, so whatever I did with the y, so 3 times 0 is 3, and then added 2. So y equals 2. So y equals 2 is my asymptote. Okay. Then I'm going to do negative 3 and a little less than 3. Negative 4 and a little less than 3. So there. Negative 2, 5 is here. And 0, a little less than 11. So there is my graph. Voila! All right, so that's 2a. And that's what you should have ended up with. Now, if I'm grading this on a quiz and I'm asking to see a photo of the picture or a PDF of what you did, I'm going to want 3 points and an asymptote only, always. All right, so this is always what I'm going to want to see. 3 points, an asymptote, that's what will get you full credit. All right, and finally, 2b. Okay. We have g of x equals negative 2 log base 2 x minus 3 minus 1. All right, so I'm looking at this. Nothing needs to be factored out. We just need the parent. And the parent function is y equals log base 2x. Now, can't graph it like that. I have to bend it. So this becomes 2 to the y equals x. All right, then I'm going to make my xy term. This time the y is in the exponent, so I'm going to put my numbers down the y column. Anytime it's a base 2, I like to use 2's. I find it more festive. So this would be 1/4, 1, and 4. Right? Again, you can use any 3 numbers you want. All right, now we're going to do our f of x column. Yes. Or actually, it's g of x. G of x. Okay, go from left to right. Right? -2 is first. That means I'm going to multiply all the y's by -2. So it's 4, 0, -4. Right? Add 3 to the x's. 3 1/4, 4 and 7. And then subtract 1 from each of the y's. So this becomes 3 1/4, 3. 4 -1, 7 -5. All right, so let's graph this sucker. We're really big here. So I've got to go out to 7 and down to -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, and 1, 2, 3. Now, the one thing I did forget to do are the asymptotes. The asymptote for a basic log graph is always x equals 0. The new asymptote, right? Since it's x equals, we make any adjustments we can to x's. So if we go back up to the equation, we added 3 to the x's, so it's going to be x equals 3. So, drawing my asymptote. So my graphs, I need to see the asymptote and then your 3 points. At 3 3/4, we're at 3. It's a little too far over. A little closer. Okay. At 4, we're at -1. And at 7, we're at -5. So that means we're going to asymptote here, and we're headed that way. All right. So there's my graph. And now I wanted to know what the domain and range of this thing was. So the domain of g of x, right? I'll put a colon. The domain is how far to the left, how far to the right. So we're soft bracket 3, and then we're going to the right forever. The range of g of x is how low to how high. It's going down forever, it's going up forever. Okay. Now, flip this over. Actually, I'll go to a clean page. So g of x was -2 log base 2 x minus 3 minus 1. Now I want you guys to find the inverse for me. Right? I had also asked you to find the domain and range for the inverse, which I'm hoping you got immediately, right? The domain of g of -1x is going to be what? And I hope you realize it's the range from the original. You flip-flop them. And the range of the inverse is the domain of the original. So you just flip-flop those. That can get done. And now we're going to do this guy. Now, the inverse of a log equation should be an exponential equation, so that's what we should end up with when we're done. All right, step 1, switch the x and the y. So we do x equals -2 log base 2, y minus 3 minus 1. All right, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add over the 1. Okay. Then I'm going to divide by -2. Then I got to bend this guy. Alright, so the base is 2. The exponent is this guy, which would be x plus 1 over negative 2 equals y minus 3. And now to write the final answer, I'm going to write g negative 1x equals 2, x plus 1 over negative 2 plus 3. Right? A couple other ways of writing this exponent. I know all the different ways, so you can put whatever you want. But that's your review, you guys, for the quiz. Very similar to this. I'm probably going to ask you to take a photo of your work or take a PDF using your phone or scan it in so I can see what you did for certain questions, trying to work on those logistics. But that's going to be the first thing I grade for real since school ended. Hope you guys are doing